The Truck Driver and the Highway Witch, a Deadly Love Story. On the long, desolate stretch of Highway 41, a legend whispered through the CB radios of truckers about a woman in white seen only by the unlucky ones. Those who stopped for her never reached their destination. The wind howled against the windows of Joe Carter's 18-wheeler as he drove through the stormy night. A trucker for over 20 years, Joe had seen many things on the road: drunks staggering out of bars, wild animals darting across highways, and the occasional hitchhiker. But tonight felt different. His heart ached, weighed down by memories of his late wife, Sarah, whose laughter had once filled his world. Every mile he drove took him further away from her, but he couldn't outrun the loneliness. He gripped the steering wheel tighter, eyes stinging with unshed tears. As he rounded a curve, his headlights sliced through the darkness, and there she was. A woman in a long, tattered white dress, standing at the edge of the road, her face hidden beneath wet, tangled hair. Joe's pulse quickened. No sane person would be out here alone at this hour. He slowed the truck, heart hammering, and rolled down the window slightly. "Need a ride, miss?" he called out, his voice hoarse. She didn't answer, just lifted her head slightly. What he saw made his blood run cold. Her eyes were completely black, voids that swallowed the light. Before he could, she moved, not walked, but glided toward the truck. The door unlocked on its own. The seat beside him was empty 1 second, and the next she was there. Heartbreaking tragedy in the third paragraph. Joe's hands trembled on the wheel. His breath hitched as the woman slowly turned her head toward him. "You remind me of him," she whispered, her voice a haunting melody. "The man who left me to die." Her fingers, ice cold, brushed his arm, sending a violent shiver through him. Images flooded his mind: a burning car, screams in the night, the scent of gasoline and betrayal. Joe gasped, clutching his chest. The vision faded, leaving him breathless. "I don't know what you mean," he stammered, but she only smiled, a smile filled with sorrow and something darker. "You will," she murmured. The truck lurched as if something massive had struck it. Joe fought to keep control, but the wheel twisted against his grip. A shadow rose from the road, towering over the vehicle. Something neither human nor beast, its glowing red eyes locked onto him. Tires screeched, metal groaned, and in the chaos, Joe heard her whisper, "It's time to pay for what he did." Unbelievable revelation that shocks and frightens again. With a deafening crack, the truck veered off the road, flipping violently. Everything went black. When Joe came to, he was no longer in his truck. He was standing in the middle of an old abandoned highway, one that should not exist. The air was thick with fog, the silence unnatural. His truck was gone. The woman stood before him, her dress now soaked in blood. "You don't remember, do you?" she whispered, stepping closer. Her face shifted, morphing into someone familiar, someone he had once loved. "Sarah." Joe's breath caught in his throat. "No, you're dead. I buried you." She tilted her head. "Did you?" The ground beneath him cracked, revealing a row of hands clawing their way out. Bodies of men, their faces frozen in terror. And he knew deep in his soul that he had stepped into something no mortal should. A new mystery for the next episode. A chilling laughter echoed in the fog, not from Sarah, but from something else. Something ancient and hungry. Joe turned, heart hammering. Another figure emerged from the mist, one he knew too well. It was himself. His own eyes, dark and hollow, stared back at him, and the doppelganger grinned. "Welcome home, Joe." Carter had always believed that the past was behind him, buried deep beneath the weight of time and regret. But when he found himself stranded on a highway that shouldn't exist, staring at his own doppelganger and a woman who wore his dead wife's face, he realized something terrifying. He wasn't just lost, he was trapped. Joe's breath came in short, ragged gasps as he stared at the figure before him, himself. The man had the same weary eyes, the same calloused hands from gripping a steering wheel for years, but there was something wrong, something hollow. His doppelganger smiled, a slow, unnatural grin that sent ice down Joe's spine. Behind him, the woman in the blood-soaked dress, Sarah? The hitchhiker? Something else? Stood silently, watching. The fog thickened around them, swallowing the horizon. Joe turned in a slow circle, his heart pounding. No roads, no signs, just emptiness stretching forever. He felt like a man abandoned in the middle of the ocean, but instead of waves, there was a highway that led to nowhere. "This ain't real," Joe whispered, voice shaking. This is some kind of nightmare. The other him took a step forward. Then wake up. Without warning, the ground beneath Joe split open. A violent crack tore through the silence, and he staggered backward as the highway fractured like glass. From the fissures, blackened hands emerged, rotting, skeletal fingers clawing at the air. A shriek pierced the fog, a sound so inhuman, so guttural, it twisted something inside Joe's chest. And then they came. Corpses. Hundreds of them, their faces frozen in agony, their mouths gaping in silent screams. They reached for Joe with fingers worn down to bone, their bodies covered in burns, deep gashes, and something worse. Shadows that slithered across their skin like living parasites. Joe's doppelganger watched with a smirk. You remember them, don't you? Joe stumbled back, bile rising in his throat. I don't know them. The ground cracked again, and this time, a truck emerged from the abyss. Joe's truck. Or what was left of it. It was twisted and mangled, its windshield shattered, its front grille drenched in blood, and sitting in the driver's seat was him. Joe's own body slumped over the wheel, eyes staring blankly